Hey guys, welcome back to Carriage House Metalworks. As I had mentioned in one of my previous videos, I was planning on making a modification to the forge whereby I was going to take these metal wheels off. They look pretty cool, kind of had an antique, vintage, characteristic look at them, but in wheeling it in and out of the shops, it became a little bit difficult. These spokes have this nail head, large nail head type thing that comes through to the wheel side, and when it rolls, makes it hard to wheel and makes noise, puts indentations in the shop floor and things like that. So I went ahead and took them off, and Harbor Freight had a sale on the day after New Year's Day, 25% off any couple items in the store. So I found these wheels with rubber tires. The only problem is they were advertised as 13-inch. When you actually measure it, it's only 12 inches in diameter. So I lost quite a bit of height difference between the center of the 1-inch hub that I've got welded to the tube frame and this wheel. So I had to make up this difference somehow, because the front of the forge is now 3.5 inches lower, and I was afraid that the fire pot wasn't going to work just right by not being in level. So I went ahead and just threw together these ramps to lift the front of the forge back up, to bring it back into level. This piece of wood on the back I put on there because when I'm wheeling it up, I wanted to make sure it stopped. It did not go over off the back side. So this video is going to be about how I made these things, if anyone is interested in watching. Let's give this thing a try before we go ahead and see how we make this thing, see if it works. Looks like it brought the forge back into level. And all is good. It's a little bit difficult getting it up on that ramp. I made it really long, narrow type angle, so I guess if I get a little momentum going, I can get it up there. And I'm glad I put those stops on the back, because it sure does stop it from going off the back side. Just briefly take a look at some of the snow from our most recent 20 inches of snow that dropped on us Wednesday night. It was minus 16 degrees this morning. It's still only about 25 degrees in the sun, so still pretty chill here. We're inside the shop today. It's 7 degrees outside and snowing. They're forecasting 12 to 18 inches of snow here today. So I thought it'd be a good idea to go ahead and spend some time inside the shop and make a modification to our forge. Now, in my previous video, I had indicated that I thought it was a good idea to use these old carriage wheels on a forge, and it looked pretty cool and everything. However, what I found is that these carriage wheels have these spokes that come through the wheel, and these are all steel. And they have these nubs on the outside. So it makes it a little bit difficult wheeling it in and out of the shop and getting it into position. And so I had indicated that I was thinking about taking these wheels off and putting rubber tires on. And that's what I've done here. So the only problem is that I could not find a rubber wheel that had a 1-inch outside diameter or an inside diameter hub to fit this axle here, which is 1-inch outside diameter. So I've got a difference in radius between the guys that we designed the forge around and these the wheels that I found. I actually found these at Harbor Freight. They were pretty cheap and 25% off. So I didn't invest a whole lot of money in these guys because I wasn't sure that I really wanted to go this route, and I thought I'd try it out first. When we put the 13-inch tires on, actually the diameter, they're rated as 13-inch, the diameter is actually 12. We've got a height difference that we end up with the forge here. So there's two things that I want to do here. Is temporarily I'm just going to build a little ramp to wheel it up on to level it out. But eventually what I want to do is I want to make a modification to the legs on the front side of the forge so that when I'm using the 16-inch rims, I can have enough distance here on these legs to level it out. But when I'm using the 12-inch tires, I can actually lower it down and level the forge out. The only problem is when I built this thing, I used 2-inch tubing here, and it's got a seam in it, welded seam. You can buy seamless tubing, and I never thought that I was actually going to have to make this modification, so I have a problem in that I can't find, at least in my metal inventory, a tube that will slide on the inside of this leg. So I thought I'd have a tube there and I could have it adjustable with pins for different height measurements, and I can make the adjustments as I move my tires on or off the forge. So today what we're going to do is we're going to start out by making a just a wood ramp to wheel it up on to keep the forge level in the short term, but I'm going to have to fabricate a sleeve to go around this tubing here, which means cutting and welding and grinding and things like that. That'll take a little bit longer. So we're going to start out today with the making of the wood ramps. So what I'm thinking here is that a 20-degree angle on each side, on one side of the block, would create a gentle enough slope to where I can wheel the forge up on to the shim block without it sliding on me or moving all over the place. So I'm going to try something that I've never done before. I'm basically going to use the radio arm here to come in and cut cross sections across this piece. And what I've done is I've drawn the line across here, brought it around to the edge, and now set it up on the saw using those lines. Then I'll come in and creep my way into the diagonal line here to make my cross cut. And then what I'll do is I'll just I'll use a handsaw and just slice it down. I'm thinking that this strategy might help the handsaw from wavering such that I don't travel off of the cut line too far when I get to the other side. So let's give this thing a try. So for the first cut, we'll bring it up. To that cut line, and we'll inch our way in to this section right here. And we'll see if this is going to work. So as you can see, what I got here, the cut right here comes right to the edge of that line. Doesn't have to be exact. I can make it exact. By just scooching it over a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out and cut each of the pieces so I don't have to come back and readjust the saw as I go. So what I discovered on my first piece here is that as I started to cut, the saw, being flimsy, was drifting. It was going up this way, and you can see it started out okay, maintaining the angle, but as I got towards the centerpiece, this end of the saw was drifting up this way. So that wasn't working out too well. I tried to backtrack and recover a little bit, but I figured that was going to take just way too much time. So what I did is I came and got my framing chisel here and thought I would just kind of rough it out by hand. And then maybe use a block plane as I got closer to the actual step dimensions to finish it off. You know, a belt sander probably would have done just as good. I know I'm trying to be way too precise here for the intended function of these blocks. I just want to be able to wheel up on this ramp without the block sliding all over the place on the concrete. So I've decided to go back to my Japanese saw here and see if I could, by pressing it down flush against the surface that I just used the framing chisel on, I can make it the rest of the way through and maintain that angle You can see it's slightly digging in to the soft surface here, which is not bad. We can lift up on the saw just a little bit on the back. Okay, to finish this piece off, I'm going to use one of these sanding bars called an Easy Touch sanding bar. It's designed to be used with sticky backed sandpaper. I'm just going to round off the top edge here a little bit, make it easy on the roll up. Put a nice little radius on that. Level off, deburr the edges a little bit. And call it good. So let's go get the other piece and see if we can do a better job of getting that first cut across the angle there. Okay, the trick here, I believe, for the second piece is to maintain a perpendicular angle on the saw until I at least get it started and have created a guide for it to go down through the rest of the piece. So I've clamped this piece of plywood onto the edge of the board here, and I'll start out on the fine cut side of the saw and keep some pressure against that board as I begin the cut, and hopefully that'll allow us to guide at the proper angle all the way through the piece. I'm not really sure that cutting these slots really helped any, but it did allow me to break some of those pieces away and see where I was when I got halfway through the board and discovered that I was drifting. These These Japanese saws are really flimsy, so they do have a tendency to waver quite a bit on a cut like this. So far so good. I'm going to flip over to the aggressive cut side and see if we can make better progress here. I got to make sure I don't hit the vise here and ding this saw. I'm going to try using a piece of plywood here on the back side of the saw as opposed to my fingers, so I can apply uniform pressure across the entire saw length. Seems to be working fairly well. We're about a third of the way through. Okay, now that I've got a cut fairly well gone to encompass the entire width of the blade, it'll act somewhat as a guide. This is actually a pull saw, so you get more cutting on the pull side. Oh, it's like it drifted. Again, it wanted to drift out that way for some reason. You know, I could pull out my power belt grinder and just knock that off in no time at all, but I've started to do this by hand. I figure I'll go ahead and finish by hand. Actually, I like having those cut lines in there because it gives me a visual as to where my trim needs to be set at. I know I'm being way too precise for the purpose of these things, but I tend to be that way on everything that I do. I like things to be just right. Besides, it's 6 degrees outside and snowing, and when I'm done here, I'll be getting the skid steer loader out and plowing a path to the county road. In order for this forge to remain level with these smaller tires, I needed a total of 2 inches of lift to put under the tires to get it to come into level. And these 2x6 pieces of scrap that I had laying around only measure 1.5 inches. So what I'm doing here is I'm having to add a 1/2 inch spacer on the bottom here to bring it up to that 2-inch height. And what I'm doing here is I'm basically bringing the ramp angle on the spacer board into alignment with the 20-degree angle that I have on this piece of 2x6. So I've already done quite a bit of chiseling here using one of my framing chisels, and now using a 4-in-1 file I'm just fine-tuning it . These 4-in-1 files are quite handy because they've got flat and round radiuses all in one file, and they have coarse and smooth. So after you rough it in with the coarse, then you can use the smooth file section to fine-tune it. I'm using my Easy Touch bar sander here to finish it off. Finish the finish. Square it up. Knock all the burrs off. Since I'm going to glue this on here, just knock any high spots off the bottom side here so it lies flush. So we'll glue that on there and we'll have a nice smooth ramp up to 2 inches. Oh, looks like it brought the forge back into level. All is good. It's a little bit difficult getting it up on that ramp. I made it really long, narrow type angle, so I guess if I get a little momentum going, I can get it up there. And I'm glad I put those stops on the back because it sure does stop it from going off the back side.